NFL Legends Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network, brought to you by Replenishing Care, the future of sports medicine. If you want to find out more about Replenishing Care and their PEMF machine, you can go to thegruelingtruth.net, click on the banner, it'll take you straight to their website. I'm your host for the Legends Show, Mike Goodpaster, and our guest today was one of the greatest running backs of the decade of the 1980s, playing for the Bills, also played in USFL for the Birmingham Stallions, and then later on for the San Francisco 49ers. Please help me welcome to the Grueling Truth, Joe Cribbs. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good.
All right, let's just start from the beginning. You grew up in Alabama, which is a hotbed of football. When did you first start playing, and who were some of your early influences?
Well, to be honest with you, I started playing football, kind of our version of football. I was probably first or second grade, very early. We had a game that we play. It was, I don't know what the exact name is. We used to call it, we didn't. I don't even think we had a name for it. But what we did is like we would punt the ball, and there would be like 15 other kids that somebody would catch the ball. Then that person would have to maneuver his way through all of the other 14 or 15 guys.
That game, Joe.
Well, I don't know what it was called.
I can't say what it was called because we live in a politically correct society, but what we used to call it was smear the, but I'm not going to finish that.
But anyway, we would play that game, and the object of the game was to get past everybody and go past where the guy kicked the ball from, and you score a touchdown. And we modified it. We'd have out of bounds and things where. So it was almost like returning a punt that you could never fair catch, and guys we didn't play tackle at that time. It was two-hand touch, but that's kind of where I started, and I think that was probably pretty helpful as far as giving me some abilities to make cuts and moves and fake guys out, that type of thing. So it came in very handy a little bit later on in my career.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about your high school career. And when did you first realize I can do more than just play high school football with this?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I never really thought about long-term football career. I just assumed that I would, just walk right through all the steps and play professionally. I mean, our biggest thing when I was growing up was professional football, Sunday afternoon after church, emulating, the players that I saw play, and to me it was like, okay, it was like predestined that, okay, at some point in time I'm going to be playing with these guys. I didn't know how difficult it would, that road is to actually achieve that, but as a 10, 12-year-old, maybe even an 8 to 12-year-old, you don't really think about how, and just know that that's something that you want to do. So that's what I did primarily was, the pro game on Sunday afternoon, and as soon as we got out of church, we would be out there, trying to emulate those guys, and it just continued to develop, my abilities, and I think when I first went to school, I went to Todd. This was before the schools were integrated, and for the first 5 years, I went to an all-black school, and then the integration came out. When I first went to Sullivan, I was in the 6th grade, and really that was the first time that I played true organized football, and back then I was a little big for my size, for my age rather, and so it just kind of came natural. I was one of those kind of bullish guys, if you can imagine me playing that way. Back then, I was one of those guys that tried to run over everybody and just outrun people, and had a lot of success, with the they used to call it the Pee Wee team. I think we were on the Pee Wee team. Well, I would usually score, 5 or 6 touchdowns almost every game. It was just that's just the way it was.
Yeah.
But one of the coaches for the other team, I never will forget this. One of the coaches for the other team challenged whether I was eligible or not, because they had a weight limit. You were supposed to be under 110. I can't remember what it was, but you had to be under that weight to play in the backfield. Well, at halftime, they took me in and weighed me, and I was 1 pound over. And so for the remainder of the game, I had to play on the line. I played offensive tackle and defensive tackle, and I hated it. My coach petitioned the league after that and said, well, if he started out the league, he was under the weight. And they had this rule where I guess if you went over the weight as the season started, you could still play. So I ended up playing the rest of the season at running back, and then the next year I moved up to junior high, so there was no weight limit or anything like that anyway. So.
All right. So in high school, with the recruiting process, what chose you to pick Auburn?
Well, after I had I guess some degree of success in high school, I was pulled up. Actually, I got pulled up early, a little bit in the 8th grade to actually play some in high school. I actually started as a 9th grader, and my 10th, 11th, and 12th year, I was like an all-state, little whatever you call it, all-American in high school. But I started to really start to get recruited about my junior year, going into my junior year, and it became pretty apparent that I was gonna have an opportunity to go to college somewhere for free and get an education and hopefully continue to play ball. And Sullivan, you have to understand, Sullivan is a very small town, and it hasn't changed much. If anything, it's probably gotten smaller. But I can remember these odd cars would be parked at certain places, waiting for either for my school bus or for me to come. But it was kind of interesting. I think the rules have changed a lot since those days, and as far as contact with players, but I had a lot of Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Auburn, Alabama, the schools that were really, really close, they were just almost seemed like every other day, there was somebody there. But I actually decided that I wanted to play in the state of Alabama, and I had to make that decision between, the University of Alabama or Auburn University. And even though I was still recruited by other schools outside, I really kind of focused on those two. And to be honest with you, there was a coach at Alabama called, his name was Ken Donahue, that came and watched me play practice. I think he came to watch me practice at Sullivan, which you just got to understand Sullivan. I mean, it's not. I mean, first of all, we only had about 26 players on a team, so practice was kind of, it wasn't anything like what I saw at other schools, bigger schools. And Coach Donahue, I guess, made the mistake, or I guess for Alabama, but probably good fortune for Auburn. He made the mistake of telling my high school coach that, that if I wanted to play for the University of Alabama, I had to improve a lot. And I just found that to be, I didn't think that was the way to recruit me. If you want somebody, you tell them that they're great, and then you obviously you gotta improve. I mean, I knew I had to improve before I got to college. But anyway, that was kind of a little thing that they could never really kind of correct in the recruiting process. And then, of course, once I found out that somebody told me that there were 7 girls to every one guy at Auburn's campus, that was, I mean.
That's better than Bear Bryant hanging out at your house, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That was the tipping of the scale. but no, I was fortunate to be a decent enough football player to get an opportunity to go to college, and I never take that for granted. I had some difficulties at Auburn early. It wasn't a piece of cake, but it would have been that way at any school. And I've never regretted one day attending Auburn.
Yeah, and let's talk about that freshman year. What was the transition to college football like for you?
It was rough. It was extremely rough. And I had, because back then, when I got to Auburn, I think it was the first year that they would allow freshmen to actually play, because they had the freshman team back then.
Yeah.
A lot of guys probably don't even remember that one time you went to college, you played on a freshman team and you had to wait to your sophomore year to actually be on the varsity. Well, I was in the first year of that transition where they would allow freshmen to actually play on the varsity. And to be honest, I was so naive coming out of Soldier that I thought that I would just go down there and be the number one running back. I look back at it and I understand why it took a little time, but I still think I had a skill set that was a little better than the guys that were playing. I mean, even though a couple of the main guys were injured, which I'd give them the nod. I mean, Cedric McIntyre in my opinion, was a great running back. But he had some problems. He was a freshman when he was a senior when I was a freshman. but he had a lot of pull muscles and different injuries that really kind of nagged him his senior year. But for the most part, I thought it was going to be like just changing of the guard. And I got a true awakening my freshman year when my cousin James McKinney, who was a great athlete in his own right. He was all SEC corner at Auburn. We're first cousins, and we decided to go to Auburn together. We roomed together as freshmen. It was just keeping it in the family kind of thing. But we had always played together our entire life. I mean, when we were playing that little game that I tried to tell you about earlier, yeah. He was one of the guys that was playing it too, and he and I had always played everything together, whether it was football, basketball, baseball, track. We always did it together, and we were always like 1 and 2, And I was always maybe just a little hair, better, in terms of ability, just a hair. He was a great athlete. I don't take that, but it was always like for example, in basketball, I would lead the team in scoring, and it's the things like that, or in track, I would be the anchor guy. I'd be the anchor guy. He would be the guy that would set me up, But when we got to Auburn, it changed. Because back then, like I said, you had to earn it, and I remember our first game as a freshman, the first varsity game, they played away at Arizona. It was Arizona or Arizona State. I can't remember which one, but I know it was one of the Arizona schools. And I remember he made the traveling squad, and he was going to Arizona that weekend. And that weekend, I was back in Soldier, at a high school game with my uncle, trying to explain, and having to answer all these questions about why are you here, and he's out there in Arizona getting ready to play a football game. It was kind of an awakening for me. And I got some good advice though from my uncle. He basically told me that I needed to go back down there to Auburn, go back down there and show them what kind of football player you are. And it kind of clicked with me because I didn't. I thought they already knew. I thought, and they did to a certain extent, but they wanted to see it again. They wanted to see it. So when I went back to Auburn, my whole mindset changed. I went from being a guy who just went through the motions in practice to a guy who treated practice like a game. And I got a lot of people upset on our starting defense because I was running scout team for them, and I was trying to get noticed. There's no question about it. I was not going half speed. I was running like it was Saturday afternoon in Legion Field, and so I had a lot of the defensive guys would, they would tackle me and they say, slow down, what are you doing, but those guys were playing.
Yeah.
So I had to play. And finally, one of the defensive coaches actually told Coach Barfield that, hey, this is the story that they told me, that I don't know this to be a fact, but it sounds probably accurate. They said, listen, your best running back is over here running scout team. And so they finally gave me a chance. It was probably midway during my freshman year that they let me play. They actually put me in at kickoff return for the varsity, and the first kick that I touched, I went 62 yards. I should have scored, but I ended up the official. I bumped into the official. He ended up tackling me, and from that point on, it was kind of downhill because I never really kind of gave up the grip that I had on the position.
Yeah, and in 1978, you had a breakout season. 79, you get added with James Brooks in the backfield. You want to talk a little bit about playing with James? James was
James Brooks. He was an exceptional athlete. He was the most confident guy that I've ever met. I mean, he was very confident in his abilities. Not to say that I wasn't, but he was very outward. He was not a introvert. He did not mind telling you what he thought or what he could do. And it was interesting because James and I became we became the best of friends, but it took a while because he came to Auburn. He came in the year after my freshman year. He came in and he told everybody that would listen to him that he was going to be the starting running back. And you know, that kind of information, that kind of news kind of circulates. So you hear about that stuff. So I knew that after that first practice, I remember his first practice. I think they had him running back punts. They punted the ball to him. He took the punt back for a touchdown and made about 3 or 4 guys miss and scored a touchdown. And then I said, "Oh, this guy's for real." So I said, "Well, I better make sure I keep a firm grip on my job." So, but we roomed together on the road. We shared information. We shared stuff, and finally, after him and I kind of, doing double duty for 2 years, going into my senior year, Coach Barfield decided to put us in the backfield together and asked me to move to fullback so that he could get both of us in the game at the same time. And I think it worked out because I think we became the first running back tandem to rush for 1,000 yards in the SEC, which was kind of special.
Yeah, and you guys won 8 games your senior year, I think it was. You lost to Alabama 25-18, which was the closest you got to beating them in your 4 years there. Right. You want to talk a little bit about the rivalry with Alabama and what it means?
Well, it wasn't during my era. It wasn't really a rivalry. I mean, it was they were the dominant team, and it was no question about that. I think they won 2 national championships during my time at Auburn. They had a great team in, I think it was 78 or 79. Well, I can't remember which team it was, but they had a really, really outstanding team. Not a team with a lot of outstanding individual play like we had. We had a lot of individual play, but they were kind of a well.
Yeah, they didn't make mistakes.
Efficient, exactly. They were They played team football. They played how you're supposed to play to win. They had a lot of people. They had a lot of very good guys. Not 2 or 3 great guys. They had a lot of very good guys that played well together. And some of those guys, I mean, I'm still very good friends with. Barry Krause is a guy that I've gotten to be really good friends with after our careers, and Murray Legg. There's just some of those guys that. That you respect them for what they did, and the accomplishments that they achieved. All I can say is that, we didn't win against Alabama, my tenure there at Auburn, but my stats look pretty good. But, like I said, that's all for talk because they were the better team on the field at the time.
All right, so you get out of Auburn, NFL draft day experience. Let's talk about your draft day experience because I don't think, especially younger people, realize how much different it was in 1980 than it is now.
Yeah, in 1980, we were preparing for the draft. I was projected to be, anywhere from, top 10 to first round. And I was rated out as one of the top 3 at the time. I think it's like top 3 or 4 running backs. And so I expected to get drafted pretty quickly. And as it turned out, I was the 29th pick, which was the first pick in the second round. And I was kind of disappointed because there were, I think there were 5 or 6. There were 5 backs taken ahead of me. I believe it was 5 backs taken ahead of me. To this day, I still can. It was Billy Sims was the first overall pick. Billy and I, had the same agent, so I was very familiar with Billy Sims. Then there was Curtis Dickey. There was Vegas Ferguson, Notre Dame. There was Charles Alexander for SC. So No, Southern Cal.
Oh,
He was
Charles Alexander was LSU.
Well, what was his name? Charles White.
Charles White.
Charles
All right.
White.
Yeah.
Charles White. Yeah, it was Charles White. I got it. You know, it's been a while. That was back in 1980. But Charles White.
Hey, the fact the fact we didn't get his name right, I'll tell you, he shouldn't have been picked before you, Joe.
And then there was Earl Cooper that got drafted by
the old 49er.
San Francisco.
Yeah,
San Francisco guy. So those guys all went ahead of me, you know, and so I was the 29th pick, first pick in the second round, and I thought, you know, I mean I didn't realize, you know, I mean that is great. That's now that I look back, to be the 29th pick is pretty special.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was pretty disappointed because I thought I was going high. And part of that was manufactured by certain GMs. I remember my agent telling me that Bobby Beathard, who was at the time at Washington, the Redskins, that he was so impressed by my workouts that he said that if I was available when they take their first pick, that they were going to draft me. So, I mean, I had all these expectations that somebody's taking me. Somebody's going to take me number one. And it just kind of, you know, worked out where Buffalo got me at, you know, with their second pick in the first round. But, you know, and then I look at if you look at the history, Washington, you know, said they might have said they was going to take me, but they ended up taking Art Monk. So they didn't take. They took a great player. They took a Hall of Fame type player. So you can't really question it. But
yeah,
hindsight's always
getting drafted by Buffalo as a running back with Chuck Knox as the coach there isn't a bad thing. When you're a running back and you go to a coach whose nickname is Ground Chuck, it's not a bad thing.
No. Chuck believed in ball control, and he believed that you win the game by controlling the clock, and you control the clock with an exceptional ground game and making first downs, and that really played to my strength. Even though we threw the ball a lot too, but you know, at least they threw a lot of passes to me out of the backfield, but he was definitely going to run the ball, and if you couldn't help us move the ball on the ground, whether you were a lineman or a fullback or a running back, then you weren't going to be around that long, because he was like you said. I mean, he didn't get that nickname by luck. I mean, he earned it, and he was actually a very, very good coach, and certainly should be in my opinion, should be in the Hall of the professional.
Yeah, I agree completely.
NFL Hall of Fame.
Forget the Buffalo Bills before he got there. They made the playoffs in '74 with O.J. Simpson, but it'd been over a decade since they were relevant, except for that 1 year. And you guys,
oh, absolutely.
If you look at it, the San Diego playoff game that you guys lost, I mean, I forget who it was. Was it Rome's where the ball bounces off and would have been picked?
Yeah.
Would have won. And people forget, you would have hosted Oakland in the AFC Championship game, and you guys destroyed Oakland in the regular season.
We had that's right. We had already beat Oakland earlier in the year, and we were definitely, you know, we were a little overconfident, and it's unfortunate that busted assignment that caused that touchdown, you know, late in the game, but you know, at the same time, you know, Ferguson was gimpy. He was out there on a bad ankle. There was a lot of things that was kind of working against us. But you know, that's football. That's why they tee it up. You know, you never know if who's going to win until you kick it off.
Yeah, and it had to be special your first 2 years in Buffalo, because I assume the fans were nothing less than spectacular just because it had been so long since they'd been any good.
I would tell you, my first game as a Buffalo Bill, first, regular season game, not playoff, not the preseason games and everything.
Yeah.
But the first regular season game, we opened the season with Miami.
Yeah, hadn't been since 68 or 69, was it?
Well, Joe Cribs didn't know that. Joe Cribs didn't know that Buffalo had lost 20 games in a row, 20 straight games, 10 years of playing them twice a year. They had lost 20 straight games. I did not realize that. I had no history. I didn't know the history of Buffalo. So we played them the first opening game. It's just the opening game to me. I mean, we go out and play. I play as hard as I can. I've always played hard as I can. I never, try to save anything. I try to leave it all on the field that day. And I played as hard as I can. We ended up winning the game. I don't remember. You had the score, but I don't remember what the score was. But we won the game. We broke the streak. Nobody. I didn't know this. So the first game. This is the first game now. The fans stormed the field. They stormed the field. They tore down the goalposts, and they were actually pulling up the artificial turf. Ripping it up off the ground. And I'm like, this is crazy. I mean, this is the first game. How could they be acting like this with the first game? And so then I realized after talking to some of the other guys, they were saying this is the first time we beat Miami Dolphins since 72 or 80 or what? Not 70, but
I think
70
it was like
or whatever.
1969. They went the entire decade of the 70s
exactly.
listening to them.
Exactly. So it was for an opening game for a rookie. It was an exciting game. It was even more exciting after the game. I gotta tell you, I had never seen fans celebrate like that. They went crazy. Remember, it's the first game, and we got to come back next week and play.
Yeah, you was waiting to get a ring for that game the way the fans acted, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I was like, is this the championship? This is not the championship.
Yeah, and I think.
But it was.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I became a fan of the Buffalo fans because they really support that team. They, while I was there, they were, a couple times we were high in the league in terms of attendance, and it's not. I mean, it's not a whole lot to do in Buffalo, and when it snows. It's a task, to go out and support a football team. I mean, sitting out there in that cold, and so I respect them. I've always had respect for the fans.
Yeah, and the 1981 season was a special season also. And the thing I remember about that is the difference in making or not making the playoffs was a Hail Mary catch Rowland Hooks made against the New England Patriots in Week 12. That has to stand out.
Oh yeah. Rowland was a great teammate. He was the kind of guy that you could count on him to give you the accurate information. As a rookie, in that case, second year guy, but a young guy in the league, he had played with some of the best. He was a veteran player, and he was a quality backup, veteran player that would help the starter be the best that he could be. So he would give me good advice, good sound advice on route running, reads, different things like that. You could count on him to give you good information. Like sometimes you get information, but it's not, from other players, it's not good information. I mean, sometimes they tell you, because you competing for a job. So sometimes the information is not the best, but Rowland was not like that. He give you good, accurate information. And I remember that game, I think the week before that game, or either maybe during that game, I think maybe during that game, I broke a couple of ribs in the game. And so I'm out. and Rowland stepped in and came up huge, at the end of the game with 2 big catches. Not only did he catch the touchdown, he had a catch before that touchdown catch. He had a big catch. I don't know. I can't remember what the situation was, but I know he had 2 big catches to keep that drive going, and we ended up scoring on that Hail Mary.
Yeah, and then you guys go to New York, win a wild playoff game where I think you guys were up like 17-0 in what seemed like the first 5 seconds of the game. You want to talk what it was like to finally win a playoff game? Well, not finally.
Well,
for you, but finally for Buffalo fans.
Well, yeah, well, for me, it was exciting. I was happy to get that win, against the Jets. But the thing that I remember most about that game was after that game, flying back to Buffalo, that evening, my wife went into labor and had our first child. And so she was born, the next day after we won that playoff game.
That's not a bad 24 hours, Joe.
No, it's not. I mean, that's what I say. I mean, my life has been pretty good. Some amazing things have happened, And but I do remember. I remember that game. It was a game where, if I'm not mistaken, we came out early, and I think we were up. We were pretty much in control of the game.
Yeah,
and
you were up 24-0 early in the second quarter.
Yeah, and then they caught on fire. I mean, they just caught on fire and just was coming back. They were coming back, and I think I can't remember all the details of the game. If I could look back at the films, but I remember I think Billy Simpson got an interception to seal the game for us. If I'm not mistaken, I know I had a pretty good game. I think it was in
the end zone too.
Yeah. So it was a hard fought game, but the Jets were a very good football team too back in that day. They had the what do they call them, the sack change.
Yeah.
I focused on the defense. I didn't really care about their offense, but I knew that they had Joe Klecko and what was the other guy? So they were, Lance Mayer. They had some good athletes on their defense, so we knew that it would always be a war with them.
Yeah, the next year they may have went to the Super Bowl if Don Shula wouldn't have let that field be a cesspool. But nobody wants to call Don out on that because he was head of competition committee. And then the next week, a game that's near and dear to my heart because I'm actually a Cincinnati Bengals fan. I don't like to admit it that much. But I still tell people to this day, I think those were the 2 best teams in the NFL that year, you guys and the Bengals. And that was a great game.
Yeah.
That went down to the wire. You guys had a big penalty late in the fourth quarter that ended up kind of sealing it. But you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, that's a game that I know we should have won that game. I got injured in the first. I scored a touchdown. I don't know if there was a touchdown that I scored in that game, and I think it's Louis Breeden tackled me in the end zone and stretched the ligament in my knee. And I tried to come back, but I couldn't come back. And that ended my season that year. I mean, I couldn't even go to the Pro Bowl or nothing like that because I was injured. They replaced me. But I remember the game, and I just felt like if I had been there, we'd have won the game. I just, and that's, I mean, I just feel like, in some ways I kind of let the team down a little bit. But injuries happen, but I think we had a kid. I think we could have won that game. We just, a lot of things went negative at that moment, and I don't know, but yeah, we I think that was another shot for us to make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, because I think you guys would have had San Diego coming to Buffalo for the championship game.
That's right. That's right. I mean, but
and you guys, you guys had beaten San Diego in the regular season in San Diego too.
Yeah, that's right. So it's you look back, hindsight is not going to change any history, but you look back and you know that a little break here, a little break there, things could have been totally different because we were right there at the door. We were knocking on the door of Chuck Knox. Chuck Knox put a quality product out there on the football field, and we were ready to go. We just couldn't quite get over the hump. And like I said, I know he just passed away last year. Well, this year, actually. I don't think it was this year.
I think it was this year.
But, yeah. But there's no question that he deserves he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
I mean, especially when you look at the fact that he.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, at the teams that he all of the teams that he coached at, he got them in the playoffs.
Yeah, he had the Seahawks win from a Super Bowl.
That's what I'm saying. He had us, a couple of plays away, from having the opportunity to get there. I think with the Rams, I think they were in the playoffs at the times that he was there. So I mean, he's won where he's been. I mean, it's in my opinion, my career worked out great to be coached by him, to be coached by Bill Walsh, and then to be coached by Don Shula. Three of the greatest, in my opinion, coaches to ever coach. And even in the USFL, Raleigh Dodge was no slouch.
Yeah. He was with the Steelers, I think, on the Steel Curtain teams.
That's right. That's right.
Then we go to 82. You guys started off 2-0. You had to be feeling good. Then the players' strike. You wanted to kind of walk us what the players' strike was like for you?
Well, I think at that time I was already out on strike, if I remember correctly. I think that, that was kind of a disruptive season. Yeah. 82. I think I actually missed the opening game or the opening two games of the season, and then they went on strike. And, because I was having, like I said, I mean, I got much respect and love for the fans of Buffalo. But at the time, the ownership group was not, they were definitely had some problems. I'll just leave it at that. There's no reason to
you can leave it at that, and I won't ask any more questions about that.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. So, but that year, I will say this about that shortened season. When the strike was over, I decided to come back and finish the year out. I had probably, people don't realize this, I had probably the best, 6 or 7. I can't remember how many games we played, but I think I actually had the best 6 or 7 games that I could have possibly had. We if memory serves me correctly, I think that might have been the year that I led the league in rushing, based upon the stats, based upon average per game and all that. I think I actually led the league in rushing in that strikes shortened season.
All right. So when did the USFL come into play for you, and how did that come about?
USFL came into play when it became apparent that we were not going to be able to get a fair deal.
Didn't you win a lawsuit allowing you to sign with Birmingham?
Yes, I did. What happened was and this is not really. I mean, I go ahead just so we have all the facts straight. This is not something that I greatly want to get into a lot of in-depth conversation about. But to get the facts straight, the Bills basically said that I had to play my contract out, my original contract out. They were not going to redo my contract. So Birmingham and the USFL came about, and the USFL, they offered me a contract to start as soon as my NFL contract ended. So I said, okay, all right, I'll finish out my obligations for the Buffalo Bills, and then I'll come play for the Birmingham Stallions. And I'm summarizing some of this, okay? Yeah. But that's pretty much what the deal was. And I signed with the Bill, with the Stallions, and the Bills argued that they had the right to match that contract and keep me. And we said, no, you don't have the right to match that contract. Now, if you want to beat that contract, if you want to negotiate in good fairness, if you want to do that, we're willing to talk to you. But they argued that they had the right to match it, and it was all based upon the standardized NFL contracts, which basically said that if you sign with another team in the NFL, if you sign with another team, the original team would have the right to match that contract and keep you. So in other words, you couldn't leave a team. You were a lifelong indentured player for the team that drafted you. You could never leave that team unless that team gave up those rights.
Yeah.
And that sounds a lot like to most people. That sounds a lot like slavery.
Well, it's the same thing baseball did that Curt Flood fought back against.
Exactly. So what they did is the judge ruled that because that clause could not apply to the USFL because the USFL was not even in existence when that clause was added to the contract. Became so when I signed that contract, there was no USFL. So there was no way it could apply to that league. So they ruled that if I wanted to go to Birmingham, I could. And at that point, there had been so much ill will, so much, back and forth, so much, in my view, so much deceit that I had to go. And and it was a great time in my life because I got a chance to play, here in Birmingham, close to home. My family could come. They were only like less than 2 hours drive. I'd have sometimes 50, 60 people attend the games, the Stallion games. And of course, I was familiar with the area and all of that. So it was a great time. The 2 years that I played over here, and before the USFL, decided it was going to do some crazy things itself, and then I went back. But then I decided to go back. That clause came back into play because if I come back to the NFL, my only gate is through Buffalo, so I got to go back to Buffalo. Yeah, and at that time, I think it became a media circus, and I think they wanted to kind of use me as a puppet in some respects. But I think they clearly were not thinking of anything in the future. I think that they should have let me go on, to San Francisco from the start and as opposed to experimenting with the remainder of that season, that 85. I think it was
because
80,
that 1985 Bills team's as bad as any team I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to say that.
But they were, because they had, if I remember, didn't they have Bruce Matheson playing quarterback or something?
Yeah, they had.
No
they
offense
had
to Bruce.
They had a.
But...
it was a ragtag. It was a ragtag group of people and a ragtag coaching staff. It was nothing like what I left. When I left Buffalo and came back, it was nothing like what the team that I left and the team that I came back to was like totally different. It was like horrible. And when I finally got traded out to San Francisco, I just felt, hey, they could have did this, right away, and I'd have been much better off, to be honest.
Yeah, and you can't get a bigger night and day than Eddie DeBartolo's San Francisco 49ers in the mid-'80s and the Buffalo Bills in 1985.
That's right. I mean, Eddie D was class all the way. Definitely cared a lot about the players and their families, and showed it. And it was like the culture that I went to was so different from the culture that I came from. Just totally different. I mean, I don't know. Well, I know what it was like with Ralph in Buffalo, but when I got out there, and they'd have a Christmas party, and they would take the time to research, all the players' family and kids' names and all of that, so that they would have gifts. They would have gifts for the kids, and they have their names on the gifts and all of that. I mean, that's the kind of quality stuff that he would do. I mean, and it all stems from the top, he did some outstanding things when I was out there for the 2 years I was out there in San Francisco, and I have a lot of respect for him as an owner.
Yeah, and the thing that's amazing to me is you look at the coaching staff you played for. You had Mike Holmgren, Sherman Lewis, Dennis Green, Bob McKittrick, one of the great offensive line coaches of all time. On the defensive side, you had George Seifert, Ray Rhodes. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
That's right. I mean, most of those guys went on and became head coaches, right?
Yeah.
and did pretty well. I mean, it's no question that he assembled a great group of coaches, a great group of players, and I think it was just an unselfish attitude there that made everybody toe the line the same way, and when you can get a team that can operate as one like that, you win. And we were pretty successful out there. We ended up having some hiccups at the end, but 1 year Montana got injured, and I think 1 year we ran into Anthony Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he beat us by himself, but it was a unique situation. I have said, and I wouldn't blast this all over, Western New York, but if I had my dealings, if it was up to me, I would have enjoyed my entire career in San Francisco.
Yeah, just because of the owner.
Yeah, if all of that could have stayed in place, yeah. But I love the. I'm gonna tell you something. If you took, what Buffalo is now, I think they have the new ownership group that I think's there seem to be more committed to winning and putting a quality product out there. Even though there's, it's competitive now, and it's hard to do that. But I think they're not resting on anything. They seem to be, they're trying to get it right. They're not standing pat like they used to do. They would be, satisfied with having OJ lead the league in rushing, even if they don't, even if they don't win games and make playoffs. And I think when I came in there, I think it was pretty much the same thing. They were satisfied with me just, getting my 1,000 yards and that kind of having that kind of success. But we actually put together a group that could actually win it. And then when it all started to when it should have all started to come together, they let it fall apart. They let it all fall apart.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just me. It wasn't just me, that had problems with ownership. There was like several of the other key players on that team. There was probably 5 or 6. I won't put their names out there, but there were 5 or 6 other quality players that were dealing with similar issues that I was dealing with.
Yeah, because that team fell apart quickly. Because you went from
exactly.
81 contending to the Super Bowl. 82, you were right on the borderline of making the playoffs. And then by the time you get to 84, you're the worst team in football.
There you go.
So I would guess in the end, you don't regret going to the USFL.
Oh no, the only thing I regret about the USFL is the fact that they didn't succeed.
Yeah.
When they could have. They should have. They could.
I know. And the guy that screwed it up is the president. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. To me, it's like ridiculous that team. You think about this. That USFL had a television contract. ESPN was just getting going. I remember
the first USFL Championship Game in Denver. There was like 50,000 people there.
Yeah.
And you guys always do good at Legion Field, and the Memphis team always do great.
Right. So the league could have been successful if they had stayed patient and they needed to trim some stuff. They needed to make some adjustments. There were some franchises that were not going to be successful because of where they were and they couldn't compete.
Basically, after the first good year, they tried to expand too quickly.
Right, exactly. And then they started to try to raid the NFL. Which I gotta say I was a benefactor of that, but I think if they had kept the original model of having maybe a couple of guys that could come over and help them develop a fan base and all of that, I think they would have been better off. Rather than, just going out, when you start signing guys and competing with the NFL head up, you're running a risk. When you start trying to draft guys and NFL draft guys and you sign guys, that's a recipe for failure. in my opinion.
It was a great league to watch, though. I remember watching it all the time. I was in high school then, and I loved watching the USFL. If you look at it, you talked about that 13-2 Niner team you played on. Who ended it? Anthony Carter, who came from the USFL, helped lead Michigan to their first USFL championship. You had guys like Reggie White, Jim Kelly. I mean, that league was loaded with guys that ended up being NFL Pro Bowlers or even Hall of Famers.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of those guys were developed. Sam Mills, and there were some guys that got opportunity to play in the USFL and develop into stars. And that was kind of I think that's what that league should have been more about. Is about not necessarily developing players for the NFL, but definitely developing stars. I mean, we had some of those. We had Chuck Clanton. Chuck Clanton played here with Birmingham. I mean, he was, I know he had some issues, but he played good football that 1 year that he was over here, that I was with him. And so they actually, created some opportunities for some guys. And I think that was the problem. I think the problem was that they decided they want to go head to head with the NFL.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, it's all or nothing. All or nothing. And it became nothing.
All right. So what occupies your time nowadays, Joe?
I am. I'm in the financial service industry. I'm in I do a lot of insurance products. I do a lot of work with, I do a lot of work with professional athletes, with high net worth individuals, showing them how to set up supplemental retirement plans, minimize their taxes, just pretty much anything in those areas is what I do. And personally try to enjoy the rest of my life. I have three adult kids now. One is, my youngest is in grad school at UAB. My oldest son is a restaurant assistant manager here in Birmingham, and my oldest child, my daughter, who was born, right after that Bills playoff. Yeah, she's blessed me and my wife with our first grandchild. Will be 2 years in September, and they live out in Houston. She's a college professor there in Houston. So basically, life has been pretty good. I mean, I try to play a little golf. I'm not very good at it, and try to keep my sanity.
Golf ain't the way to do that, is it, Joe?
No, it's not. It's not. But it. I tell you one thing is, like, it gets very. I don't know whether it's from all the years of playing football and the hits and everything, but it's it's just I guess you reach a point where you're like frustrated with little things. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm healthy. But I worry about it a lot. Yeah. When all the reports about, I just lost, a couple of friends. I just lost, Dwight Clark. San Francisco, and we're dealing with those kind of issues with guys that you either play with or you've known, and so you worry about your health. That's an issue that I worry about. I try to stay as healthy as I can, but I just hope that that's not. I just, I pray that I don't have to deal with those kind of issues. But you never know.
Yeah,
never
do. And it seems like there's more and more every day coming out like that. And unfortunately, I don't think the NFL could really care either way.
No, there is no. In fact, they are. It seems like this whole deal with the concussion settlement. Obviously, that the big PR of them, basically settling that whole lawsuit and everything. It seemed like, well, they settled the lawsuit, so these guys are going to get compensated. No. But then they have drug their feet. They have challenged you at every turn. I don't understand what the attorneys agreed to, because I don't understand why guys now that I know guys that are sick.
Yeah, that aren't getting anything.
That's what I'm saying. They're not getting anything, and I don't understand that. Why, if they settle, now we got to go. Now they're making these guys have to go out and prove that they're injured or that they have some deficiencies. I don't think it's fair.
No, it's not.
But
you got lawyers like leeches that are, trying to suck dry all the money too.
That's right. And see, I guess I spent a lot of my career, battling against, the teams and dealing with those kind of issues. And it seems like it's just a never-ending process.
Yeah. And the only time they'll do anything about it is if they get some bad press and people start to bitch.
That's right.
It's like the national anthem thing. They're the only corporation I know that could back themselves in a corner, so no matter which way they go, they lose half the people supporting them. I mean, it blows my mind. It's like the people that are for the protesters, are going to be against you if you do it this way. But if you do it to make them happy, these guys are going to be mad at you. So either way, they're a PR nightmare. And I don't know how Roger Goodell makes $30 million a year that way.
I think it's more than that. He makes more than 30. I think it's something like 40-something or 50. But, and see, that's another thing is I don't understand, like there have been modifications and there are different things that, the PA, that our NFL Players Association is actually, got all of these different programs. And I got an email this morning from one of my former teammates, and I saw him a couple of weeks ago up in Buffalo at a little deal that we were attending, Jim Kelly's charity golf event, actually. Yeah. But anyway, so we were talking about this, and I know he took some of my ideas and put it in his article, but that's fine because it's to the point. But I was telling him, and he put in his article that he sent that the NFL seems to be developing a lot of programs for retired players. All these various programs, different kind of programs, discount programs, all this kind of stuff. And we were there, and I said, that's great for the people who run those programs, because it creates jobs for them. Yeah. But and so the money that's supposed to be going to the players are going to run those programs. And don't get me wrong, there's some of those programs are okay, but some of them are just totally BS. And you might, some of these programs might service a handful of players, but they got these programs set up and they cost money to run, and I just don't understand why there's probably 25 various programs out there that they have implemented. And so instead of giving, this is what I said. I said, instead of giving us all these programs, instead of giving us these programs, give us money and let us prioritize where we want to apply it, rather than saying, well, okay, you can, if you go over here and do this, you get a discount over there. Or I'm just using that. But I'd have to have some of the stuff in front of me to kind of illustrate it. But there, for example,
well, Joe, if
I
you
went
ever
down.
Want to, we'll do an entire show about it if you want.
Oh, I'd love to talk about that. I'd love to talk about the because I think it's a misuse of funds, in my opinion. You know, you got some guys that already have health insurance through their spouse or what have you, like I do. Okay, so they have these programs where you can go get an examination or whatever. Now, how can you say no to that?
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing it. I mean, it's because it's going to help some guys. It's not going to help me. So then that goes back to what I'm saying. Okay, if you gave me the money, I could apply, or if you gave those people the money, they could apply it where they need to apply it, and it would make more sense. Instead of paying the various doctors, the various administrative people that are running these programs, you know, it might be a handful of people, but those people are earning a salary. All that stuff adds up. I mean, they're so penny conscious. Let's be penny conscious.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
But all right, Joe, I'm going to let you go. I want to thank you for coming on today. It really was an honor. You were one of my favorite running backs when I was younger, watching the NFL. And we do this show for guys like you and the Eddie Metters, the Roman Gabriels, the Christian Okoyas, guys that people don't realize what built the NFL into what it was. And it wasn't a bunch of rich owners that did it. It was the players who gave the owners the capability to make that money, that gave people the ability to enjoy pro football. And if it wasn't for guys like yourself, the NFL would not be what it is today, and I think that gets overlooked by even the NFL itself.
I think you're absolutely correct, and I would only add that I think also the fans that actually turn that TV on and turn that radio on and buy that ticket. Those are the people that really have a lot of say-so about, what happens in the NFL, because, the current players are kind of they're in a very no-win situation. They're kind of, the owners have a system in place that they have basically molded and critiqued over a long period of time. And the only thing that changes or makes them change is the economics. Economics is what causes the NFL to wake up and take a look at or pay attention. If the numbers go down, the numbers go up, that's what they look at. So if what they're doing is not right, turn the TV off.
You got that right.
That's right.
And they're very rarely doing what's right. So they do what's right for themselves. But let's face it, they're big corporations. How many big corporations aren't like that?
That's true.
But, hey, Joe, would love to have you on again sometime. It was a pleasure talking to you.
It was fun. I enjoyed it, and I'll look forward to coming back again.
All right, guys. Remember, you can hear all the Grueling Truth shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find the Grueling Truth. So for Joe Cribbs, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to the Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.